I'm Tom. I like coming after John because people won't keep telling me I'm dressed up. So my project was to develop these problem sets that's implemented on Blackboard that student can practice over and over again, and we'll see how it works. Okay, so I'll start talking about the motivation for this project, as well as describing what the project is like, and then we'll look at some results. So first, the course I'm targeting is Chem 099. It's a preparatory course for the General Chemistry 1. And so these students have remedial or not college-ready level chemistry. And the idea is to improve the students' performance and their learning. How am I going to evaluate that? I'm not exactly sure if these are valid, but these are the more measurable things I have. First, we'll be looking at their exam score compared to previous semesters, and also their final exam score, which is a common campus final, and we have different versions that's given on different semesters, but all the same questions, but the choices were switched. So I thought that might be a good evaluation. And then for success, perhaps looking at the DFW rate. So we'll look at that later. My personal goal for my class after the implementation was to first, can I improve their work habits? So that's the first thing I hope to do. And then looking at their exam and final scores. So the project is these Blackboard delivered practice problems. And they're small sets, they're problem banks that the student can keep practicing, and they get different problem combinations each time, so they're not memorizing the answer. They're due, they're due the day before the exam because I want to maximize the impact. They're kind of not as useful if you make them do after the exam. And so they also have unlimited attempts on these problems. So these are very low-risk assessments that give them immediate feedbacks as to what did they know, what didn't they know. It tells them which problem they got wrong and what the correct answer is. So they can go either get some help, looking their notes, try to find the correct answer first by themselves, and then try again. And I talked about the question banks, and the delivering it's on Blackboard, so they can attempt it whenever they want with the diverse student body we have. I thought that would be much more useful for the students. Oh, so here's a screenshot of a typical type of problem if it's a calculation type where you can see their variables standing for X. So they don't just memorize what the answer is, but they need to be able to apply the calculation steps in the correct order as well. Some of the metacognitive and aspect of it is to, I like the first one is so that students who are very strong, they don't have to waste a lot of time doing busy work. They do it once, they get it right, great, they don't lose any points, but it's also allowing a student who needs the work and who's willing to put in the time and work to be rewarded. Low-stake assessment that the student can use to evaluate themselves and try again. And they can keep practicing this learning cycle of retrieving information and see if they get it right, and then do it again and again until they get better at it. All right, let's take a look at the results. So first, effect on student behavior. For the 4 exams, you can see that most of the time, about 60 to 70% of students try between 1 to 2 times. For the first exam in red, there's a lot more higher number of tries. That might just be a novelty effect. Hey, this might be something new, or they're trying to get used to the system. And then towards the end, the 4th exam in blue, there's a little bit fewer number who are trying more. And it's because the 4th exam covering materials that's covered in the first 3 exams, but now putting them together in a more realistic concept. They have to use what they have learned in a more complex problem solving. And so perhaps I'm guessing that they just got better at it. It could be because of John's project, too. They just got really good. And then towards the end of the semester, there are also some students who stopped showing up but never dropped. They're also included. So, and then Oh, but in general, there's no significant lasting effect of, I think, increasing practice. Perhaps they give up, perhaps they just needed to do it once and get the full points. I'm not exactly sure. And then I wanted to look at how does this problem score correlate to their exam score in class, whether it helps them on the exams. So what we can see is that if they score 80 or above on the problems, they do pretty well on the exams. And you can see that's throughout the first three exams. The fourth exam, however, we see that a lot of students, they don't need to do so well on the problems. They're trying less as well, but they still do pretty well on the exam. And I think it's because, again, these are the things they have already learned before. They're just putting it together. So how do you do well on problem sets if scoring 80 helps you your exam? How can you do better on these problems? I look at how many times they try. So you can see that the more time you try, the better you get on the problem sets. So perhaps trying more will help them on the problem set, and then that could lead to a better exam score, perhaps. And so if they get at least an 80% on these practice problems, then they have a much better chance of doing better on the in-class exams. Okay. Do attempts really lead to higher exam score? Because that seemed to be what I was suggesting. So first exam, these are the grade distribution. On the x-axis is the number of attempts that's increased from exam 2 to exam 1. On the y-axis is their score change, whether it's increasing or decreasing. And so from the second exam to the first exam, we see a lot of students didn't do as well. From the third exam to the second exam, we see a lot more students doing better. If I made a cutoff line at an improvement of at least 10%, then we can see that there are more students who are doing more practice, leading to better results, because sometimes a little bit difference may not be significant. So I just randomly picked 10% as something that perhaps is more of a significant improvement. And then the last, from the fourth exam to the third exam, most students are doing better, not necessarily doing more work and doing a lot more practice, not necessarily leading to better results. I'm not exactly sure, but probably due to the nature of that exam again. And I only have one of this class the past semester, so it's very limited data set. But it's a good thing to see that in general, students are moving up and to the right, because that means they are performing better on the exam, and perhaps they're doing, their work is paying off. Final exam comparison. The two fall semesters have very similar final exam average. My spring semester was not so good, even though we had the coaches embedded in those classes. How about my class? I don't have, these are the results from the campus. So I have a lot more people, as you can see. And the fall semester, in general, did better than the spring semester, about, on average, 2 problems. About 1.2 to 8.4%. What about my class? Because the department implement other things to help improve student performance. How can I parse that out from what I'm trying? So I compare my class where the problem set sections compared to the campus-wide result. My section did better on average about 5 problems compared to the campus. And if you compare to the previous fall semester, which also had a very good performance, it's on average, again, about 5 problems. So it seems to suggest on a very limited data points that the student did do better, and I'm hoping that in some way it might be contributed to these problem sets. And I'd also see a decrease in DFW rate, because I think these problems let students know where they stand. They have a better idea of what they know, what they don't know, and they can target what they want to work on. And that helps them build their confidence and stay with the class. Conclusion, not really improving student performance. My time is up. Not really improving student performance, but it does seem to improve, improving student behavior, but it does seem to have some effect on student performance on exams and final in class, as well as decreasing the DFW rate. Moving forward, I want to think about what are the other ways I could implement this and improve it. I want to thank all these people here and your time, and the people who helped me do the statistical analysis. And these are the references. Thank you.